Hi everybody and welcome to your final lesson on looking at this grade 1 piece Elenke. Hopefully you've worked your way through the previous videos and you should be by now familiar with the different sections. This is really how we put the sort of final touches to this piece when we're putting it together so we can get it performance ready, and it's going to look at several different things. So on the screen you can see for the first time the whole piece all together, and you might be able to recognise the different sections that we've been looking at. So the first lesson, which was lesson 3 in this series, we looked at just the first 10 bars, which was the first 8 bars of music, so from here all the way down to here. The next lesson we looked at this section here, the bit with all the slurs, you'll remember, we got as far as here, and we also looked at the 4 bars here at the end, the same. The next lesson we looked at this challenging bit in the middle with lots of 4th fingers on our A strings for the top E. And we also looked at the last 4 bars because they're very, very similar to the previous lesson. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to just look at what we can do musically to make it a piece of music and not just a series of different sections we've been looking at. And the first thing I want to look at is something called articulation. And when we talk about articulation on the violin, really we're talking about what we're doing with our bow. It's not just as straightforward as just playing one note after the other with separate bows. We've looked at lots of different things already without necessarily pointing them out. And anything that I've written on the music in red is relating to articulation. So let's just have a look through it. First things first, there's a direction at the very top here that says with energy. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about this piece. We know it's called Elenke. It's actually a Bulgarian folk song, and it's meant to be played as though it's a dance, it's a folk dance, which is why I've put that picture at the start there of a sort of traditional Bulgarian folk dance troupe, so that we can kind of get into that mindset before we even start playing, that anything we're doing with the bow is trying to give that energy that comes with a dance. So that's what we need to have in mind right at the start. And there are a few different questions that we also then need to look at. We need to think about things about how we play these notes. Are they detached, i.e. separate bows? Are they slurred with maybe more than one note per bow? How do we achieve these different things? So the first thing I wanted to point out here is that whenever we have notes that have got a line underneath them, that line tells us that we need to play them with a bit more emphasis. So we need to make sure that we are using a full bow for those marked notes. So the first passage here, we just need to be detached bows with lots of energy. Then full bow. Then full bow. So we need to get into that mindset of being full of energy and making sure we use a full bow to emphasise those marked notes. Let's just try that passage together, please, from here, after 2. I'll give you 2 bars in. 1, 2, or 1, 2. Lots of energy. Now full bow. And full bow. Fantastic. Now the next passage here, it's a completely different articulation. We're portraying a different kind of mood. It's now slurred, which the posh word for what we're achieving is legato. It's really nice and smooth. So we now want to make sure we portray that. Let me just show you what I mean. Instead of it being quite a jerky bow, it's all meant to be nice and smooth. We've got to imagine there's a bit of syrup on our bow or something that's making it really gloopy and smooth. So listen to what it sounds like. So I'm really trying to imagine that my bow is basically getting stuck to the strings all the way through that. Just try and join me with that, going from where the spotlight is, playing it nice and legato. Here we go, after 2. 2 bars in again. 1, 2, 1, 2. Nice and smooth. Excellent. And the idea is that that's quite a contrast from the previous section. This is all about kind of marked notes, emphasising certain parts, nice and detached, lots of energy. Here it wants to be a bit more contrast in terms of the sound because it's a bit more legato. The next section here is similar to the first section. We're back to detached bows, separate bows. We're still lots of energy, And we've got some marked notes again that we need to use our full bow for. Just listen to what this section should sound like. So I'm starting on that top open E, and we are going like this. Full bow. Full bow. Now you'll notice I haven't written full bow above these two open E's. We will use our full bow, but we just want to make sure that the notes that are marked need to be a bit more emphasised, a bit more accented. Okay, try and join me here, and let's play that and really try and capture that energy and remember those emphasised notes with the marks underneath them. Here we go, after two bars in. 1, 2, 2, 2. Now full bow. Full bow. Excellent. And then the next section here is exactly the same as it was earlier, just slurred and legato. So we want to make sure that that's in. So let's give that a go. I'll get my spotlight again. Let's give that a go from here and see if we can get to that legato bit after 2. Straight away together. 2 bars in. 1, 2, 1, 2. Think super glue. Fantastic. And then this last section, which we looked at right at the end of the previous lesson, is the same notes, but this time it's got to be detached. It's not slurred anymore, so it's detached bows, separate bows, and we've got to make sure we have a real accent on that penultimate note, which is what that sort of mini diminuendo sign means. It's actually an accent sign. And then underneath the last note, that SF, tells us that this final note is a real accent as well. So we want to dig in for those last 2 notes. Let me show you what I mean. Separate bows. Now 2 accents. And we spoke at the end of last lesson about making sure that our last note really lifts up in the air with the bow. Just try playing with me, please. From where the spotlight is, those last 4 bows with that detached sound. 2 bars in. 1, 2, 1, 2. Excellent. Careful not to drop your bow at the end. So that's what we need to think about when it comes to articulation. And the challenge comes when we try and put it all together in one full performance. And I'd like to try that now. Just thinking about articulation, can we go right from the start? I'll give you some clues as we go along, but if in doubt, you've got the pointers there in red, telling you exactly what kind of mood we want to capture with the articulation, so what we're doing with our bow. Okay, so instruments up. Remember, we're starting off, we're imagining we are in the mindset of these Bulgarian folk dancers, dancing with lots of energy, and we're trying to portray that on our violins. So, bows on the A string, plenty of energy, and detached separate bows to start off with. 2 bars in. 1, 2, 1, 2. Think of glue, think of syrup, no gaps. Now detached again, separate, now full bow. Now glue again, nice and smooth. Now detached. Good. So you can hear that straight away when we think about what we're doing with our bow, instead of just going through the motions, we can add so many different layers to this performance and make it sound so much more exciting, especially with a piece like this that's so full of energy. But that's only half of the picture. So we know what we're doing with our bow. The next challenge is to think about dynamics. Now, as you know, dynamics in music talks about whether it's loud or soft. And we've got so many different bits of information on the music here that tell us what we should be doing in terms of the dynamics. So, to start off with, our very first dynamic marking, if I just get rid of my pointer, my very first dynamic marking is MF, which of course we know stands for mezzo forte, which means medium loud. And to me, I just think, well, that just means it needs to be a nice solid sound. Okay, it doesn't need to be too loud, not too soft, but a nice solid sound there with our bow. I've left the red markings up there because we're still trying to make sure we're including this articulation. and you'll just notice that I've included the numbers here for our fingers, but I've put them in black so we don't get confused. So anything green means dynamics. We start off mezzo forte, so a nice solid sound. Carries all the way on at the same volume until we get to here, where we suddenly have quite a substantial drop from MF, mezzo forte, right down to piano, which we know means soft. So I've put a little emoji there to remind us that as soon as we get to here, we need to suddenly drop down. So we need less pressure with our bow, we need to be a bit closer to the fingerboard, and we need to be almost whispering this music, like this. All the way through until we get to here. Now this is the second loudest, I was about to say the loudest, it's the second loudest part of the whole piece. It's all the way up to forte, which means loud or strong. So I've got an emoji there to help us remember that. We've played all of this piano really soft, and we've suddenly, out of nowhere, got to switch to forte. It's got to be really loud. So we've just played, if I play from here, we've just played this, nice and piano, then really loud, all the way through until again we have a sudden drop all the way down to piano, so really whispering it. So if we've just played from here, this is forte, there's piano, we're almost whispering it, and then we've got cresque dot circled in green, and that's just shorthand for crescendo, which we know means getting gradually louder, and that actually lasts all the way to the end. So we've got to gradually get louder from piano here all the way up to achieve those accents at the last note, the penultimate note, and then the very last note has SF, which means accent as well. So we're starting off piano here, getting louder, getting even louder, louder, until we have those two accents. Let me show you what I mean for those last 4 bars. Each note needs to be louder, and the loudest note has to be the loudest of all of the notes of the piece. So plenty to think about here in terms of dynamics. Let's just try playing through from the start to the end. You'll notice, by the way, I've got a little Bulgarian folk dancer here jumping in the air, and that's just to remind us that that last note needs to lift the bow up off the string so we achieve that energetic finale. So from the start, we're going to try and put all of this together. We're going to get into the mindset of these Bulgarian folk dancers. We're going to pack a punch with loads of energy, and we're going to try and achieve these dynamics as well. Let's try it through with me giving some hints for the dynamics as we go. So starting off with a just normal strong sound, not too loud, not too soft. After 2 bars in. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now full bow. Now full, now drop. Super glue, but nice and soft, not too much pressure. Nice light bow. Now get ready to really smack it loudly, here we go. Now full bow. Get ready to drop it down now. Now we start to get louder. Even louder. Lift. And that's how we make our piece of music go from being just looking at a few bars at a time and playing the notes correctly to giving a real performance with bags of energy and bags of character to it. Okay? So what we need to do now, our next step, is to do exactly that all over again, but with the piano accompaniment, which we recorded earlier, okay? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to perform it to you once along to the piano accompaniment, and then you're going to join me. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to perform it for you along to the piano track so we get an idea of how it's meant to sound. What would be really helpful is if you could just follow the music along as I play it and just listen out and look out for how I achieve those different aspects of articulation and dynamics. Here we go. I get 2 counts in before the piano starts, and then the piano plays during those 2 bars rest at the start. Have a listen, you'll know what I mean. Piano. Now me. So there we have it. It's a much more exciting performance when we put all of those things together along to the piano accompaniment. So your turn now. Let's get ready and let's try and play this together along to the backing track, and then hopefully you've got plenty of material here with these videos to help you to continue to prepare this piece ready for your assessment. So here we go. Instruments up and ready because it goes quite quickly. Piano, 1, 2, here we go. Excellent, and I hope you all brought your airs, lifted your bows up in the air as well at the end to make a real performance out of it. Good, so enjoy practicing this piece, it's lots of fun, and this is the best bit now when we get to make it our own and add all of these extra little bits to it to make it a really exciting performance. So enjoy it, and happy practicing.